So, I have always been at heart a physical DPS player when it comes to MMORPGs. The playstyle has always sung for me. I really don't know why. Something about being close and personal to the action, I suppose. In the last Final Fantasy XIV live letter, the developers went into some detail about the upcoming changes for physical DPS. So, let's discuss those changes in some detail. We'll start off by talking about the overall changes happening for physical DPS, regardless of the job. One of the big changes is that the recast time of primary abilities will be adjusted to 60 or 120 seconds. This is going to really aid with creating more fluid rotations, giving better burst windows, and just generally, it feels better when cooldowns align naturally rather than having to wait and force them to align. This is an awesome change that is going to make jobs feel so much better to play. Next up, Feint's effect will be changed to reduce physical damage dealt, and will also reduce magical damage dealt. The current effect on Feint is a 10% reduction in strength and dexterity. I wonder if changing it to physical damage is basically doing the same thing, just with less words. Let me know in the comments. I know most raid encounters deal mostly magical damage, and being able to help mitigate that as a physical DPS, well, it's nice. I wonder if Feint and Addle will stack to give a much bigger reduction in damage. Will encounters be designed where you will need to overlap them to survive certain mechanics? I guess only time will tell. The next big change for physical DPS had me very excited, and that is throwing no longer breaks your combo. I can't tell you how many times I'd be 2/3 of my way through the combo when the boss drops a point blank AoE and you just need to run out of that. What you want to do is throw dagger, use NP, or maybe a piercing talon to get some extra damage in while out of range. Yeah, this is going to be a huge quality of life change, and something I really am looking forward to. Finally, the last big change for physical DPS that they talked about has something to do with parity and damage scaling, and the way they explained it, well, I found it to be pretty confusing. I think what they are saying is that, with downscaling in Endwalker, attack potency may go down, but the damage will stay relatively the same. If an enemy took you 30 seconds to kill before the downscaling, that same enemy should still take you 30 seconds to kill. So now we can go into more detail about the specific physical DPS jobs, starting with Dragoon. So they mentioned that Dragoon will gain a new action when they finish a combo rotation. Really don't have much to add on this. Dragoons already have actions to use when finishing up their combos. They did mention that they have been upgrading actions to higher versions, and I'm guessing that is what will be happening here. I don't really know if I could classify that as a new action though. It's just doing the same thing with a different effect. Next up, Blood of the Dragon is becoming a trait, and even as a noob to Dragoon DPS, even I was looking at this ability and wondering why it was something I had to press. The ability is what I like to call press and forget, and those are just naturally boring abilities. It is fully maintained by doing your regular rotation. There is nothing to it. Making it a trait opens up a much needed space on hotbars, and it is a godsend to players on remote controller. They also mentioned that Battle Litany Recast will now be 120 seconds, down from 180 seconds, and Lance Charge Recast will now be 60 seconds, down from 90 seconds. So this means that Dragon Sight and Battle Litany will always match up, and Lance Charge will match up every other cycle. Pretty cool. Finally, Spine Shatter Dive will be 2 charges. They are trying to solve the age-old question of, do I use this ability now because it's a DPS increase, or save it for later because of the utility it brings? With 2 charges, you can now use it once for the DPS, and save the other charge for when you think you will need to close the gap. This is a really good change. So that is everything for Dragoon, and next up will be Monk. So let me start off by saying that I don't really play Monk. My Monk is level 55, and for whatever reason, I just don't have as much fun playing it as I do other physical DPS jobs. So all my thoughts on this are from someone who hasn't enjoyed Monk up to this point. So the first thing they talked about was they are unlocking chakras at a lower level and removing Grease Lightning. I am glad that they are unlocking the chakra system at a lower level. I think every job should have access to their resource system earlier. It's what starts to define the job. So that's really good over there. I'm not sure what I feel about the Greased Lightning change though, but as I said, I don't really play Monk all that much, so why don't you guys let me know in the comment section below. They are also adding a new system called Masterful Blitz, which interacts with Perfect Balance. The Blitz will change depending on what weapon skills you use. They seem to have some trouble describing this, but they said there would be 3 different types of chakras, and it would be a yin-yang type of situation, which to me means light and dark types of abilities. The shoulder tackle change also looks cool. My view on utility abilities is they should not have a potency component to them. You should only want to use them for the utility that they provide. Right now, shoulder tackle does damage, which means you want to use it on cooldown to do that damage. They are getting rid of the damage aspect and making it something you use to dart around the arena instead. Now you can target allies and foes and zip right to them. It looks like a lot of fun to use. Lastly, they are changing the way Perfect Balance works as well. It is going to be a charged action with up to 2 charges. It charges over time, and they said that each charge takes 40 seconds. True Strike and Twin Snakes are losing their positional requirements as well. Honestly, that's one of the reasons I don't like Monk. All the positional nonsense I find to be very annoying. In general, I don't particularly enjoy positional requirements, but Monk took it to a whole new level. With this change, I might be able to have fun playing Monk. Time will tell. And that is everything for Monk for the time being. Let's continue on with Samurai. So, the effects granted by Jinpu and Shifu will be applied by AoE combos. Jinpu increases your damage, and Shifu reduces weapon skill cast and recast time, spell cast and recast time, as well as reducing the delay between attacks. I think this is a great change that will make AoEing on Samurai much more fluid. Before, you had to start with your single target rotation to get those buffs rolling, and then you could reapply them with your AoE abilities. But now you can just start with AoE right out the gate and get those buffs rolling. They are also adding a new effect for Iai Jitsu and another ability in the vein of Tsubame Gaishi. So Iai Jitsu uses your Sengage charges for a big finisher, and Tsubame Gaishi repeats whatever Iai Jitsu you just did. I am excited to see what the new stuff will be. They also said that Tsubame Gaishi will be stackable to 2 charges, which is exciting for the burst potential that will unleash. They also mentioned that Meikyo Shisui will have 2 charges as well, and now when you are under the effects of Meikyo Shisui, your Jinpu and Shifu will be refreshed. My god, the amount of bursts this will allow is just insane. They are not kidding when they said that Samurai will be a pure DPS class. And that is all they had to announce for Samurai. Let's continue on with Ninja. So, Ninja is the job I enjoy playing the most right now. It is what I'm maining, and from what I saw in the job action trailer and what they announced for it, it might be very hard for me to switch over to Reaper. So, first of all, they are adding actions to Raitan, Dotan, and Hutan. In the job trailer, I made out a Raitan torpedo gap closing ability, and it not only looked cool, but is something I've been wanting on Ninja for a very long time. Shikushi is cool and all, but it really doesn't make up for not having a dedicated gap closer. They are also adding an action to make it easier to apply Hutan. Not gonna lie, I've never had an issue keeping up Hutan, but having more options is always good. Next up, they got rid of the Shadowfang action, which I think is just fine. I found Shadowfang to be pretty lackluster. It was just something you hit when it is off cooldown, and there's no way to really maintain the dot. I remember speaking to an FC mate about what they should get rid of on Ninja, and that was the exact ability I thought would be good for the chopping block. They made a brief mention of a new action for when you have Bunshin up. I wonder if it will be Shadow Explosion, or something to that effect. Lastly, they said they will not be adding a 4th sigil for ninjutsu, which I wouldn't have complained about if they did, but they said that the job is already busy enough, and they didn't want to make it even more busy. And that is everything that they had to say about Ninja, so let's continue on with Reaper. From appearances alone, Reaper has stolen my heart. They have an awesome outfit, and the scythe aesthetic is something I've liked, since I first saw it in Final Fantasy XI. So, they attack with their avatar, and you will also be able to serve as the avatar's vessel to use even more devastating attacks. They will also not serve as a pure DPS spec, kind of like Samurai does, because they can provide a buff to the party. Yoshida said that you may have noticed the Reaper trying to take something from the Bard in the trailer, and that means to me creating a macro to select the correct party members. They have 2 gauges to track. The top one is the soul gauge, and you charge this gauge to use different attacks. The second gauge, the bottom one, is called the Shroud gauge, and that one fills up by using various weapon skills. Once filled up, you can merge with your avatar to deal even more devastating abilities. The way the Reaper creates distance and closes the gap is also really cool. They drop a gate or portal and fly back several yalms, and then can return to the portal. That aesthetic to me is awesome, and it looks like so much fun to use. I love the attack animations, they look epic. They said that the job will also be a bit complex, with a very fast playstyle, and those 2 things make me very happy. Reaper is vying for my affection. Can it pull me away from Ninja? So yeah, that was a more in-depth view of what they said about the jobs, and what I think so far. They are all looking really good, and even Monk, which is a job I have had a hard time getting into, it is looking like something that will be a great deal of fun in Endwalker. Which physical DPS has caught your eye? Are you going to change what you are maining? I, for one, am really leaning heavily to changing to Reaper. It looks like so much fun from what they showed off. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And, as always, have a great day.